Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're really digging into the world of microservices, specifically something called Command-Side Replica.
Ah, yes. It's a really clever pattern, actually. It helps us solve this common problem we often see in microservices.
Which is,
Well, how do you make sure one microservice can get the data it needs from another microservice without, creating all these crazy dependencies between them?
right, because each service wants to be independent, right?
Yeah,
Like its own little kingdom of data.
exactly. But sometimes those kingdoms need to share resources.
Share the royal snacks, so to speak.
Huh. I like that. Okay, so imagine this. You're building an online food ordering system. Classic example.
Delicious.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got your order service, obviously, handling all the orders, but then you've got this whole other service, your restaurant service, and that's where all the menu data lives.
Makes sense. Each restaurant has its own menu, and we need to keep track of that somewhere.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Every time someone wants to place an order, you don't want the order service to have to go ask the restaurant service for the entire menu every single time.
Oh, man, that would be a disaster. Imagine the lag, just trying to load up the app and
Yeah.
spinning.
Totally. And that's where this command-side replica pattern comes in. Instead of all that back and forth, we say, hey, why don't we just keep a little copy of the menu data directly inside the order service?
Oh, interesting. So it has its own little cheat sheet.
Exactly. It's like a mini version of the menu, just the essentials. And that, my friend, is the replica. And because it lives over on the command side, which is our order service in this case, well, there you have it.
Okay, I'm following so far. But how does this replica know what's going on with the actual menu? Like, what if a restaurant changes their menu? We don't want people ordering things that don't even exist anymore, right?
Such a good question. And the answer lies in the wonderful world of domain events.
Ooh, domain events. Sounds fancy.
It's not as complicated as it sounds. Basically, imagine the restaurant service sends out a little system-wide announcement every time something on the menu changes.
So if they add a new burger, they ring the bell?
Exactly. New burger alert,
Huh.
or milkshake machine's down again. These announcements, these are the domain events.
So it's like a little internal news feed just for the microservices to stay up to date.
You got it. And our order service, with its handy-dandy replica, it's listening for these events, these updates. So every time something changes, the replica gets updated too.
Ah, okay. I see. No more outdated menus and confused customers. Everyone stays in sync.
It's all about keeping those lines of communication open. No more whisper chains in the microservice world.
I like it. So much faster and more efficient than constantly having to check back with the source every time. But, okay, I do have to ask, what about those moments right when something changes? Like, what if the restaurant service is updating the menu at the exact same time an order comes in? Is there like a tiny window where things could get messed up?
Ah, you're sharp. Yes, that's actually one of the trade-offs we always have to think about with this pattern. There's a slight chance for what we call data staleness. Basically, the replica, that little copy of the data, it's a snapshot, right? Frozen in time until the next update comes through. So yeah, there could be a tiny delay.
Okay, so like a game of catch-up that's almost always perfectly timed. But every now and then, maybe a millisecond of lag.
You got it. And honestly, most of the time, it's not even an issue. But as developers, we always have to consider how critical is this data? What are the consequences if it's even a tiny bit out of date?
Right. Makes sense. So you probably wouldn't use this for something like, I don't know, stock prices or something where every second really counts.
Exactly. High frequency trading, real-time auctions, anything like that, you'd want to look at different approaches.
Yeah.
But for a lot of use cases, like our food ordering example, the benefits far outweigh the risks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking faster orders, less waiting around, happier customers. It sounds like a win-win.
Absolutely. And less load on the system overall. Remember how we talked about each service being its own little kingdom?
Yeah, with the royal snacks and all.
Well, this way, each service gets to be a little more self-sufficient, more autonomy, which is a good thing.
Right, because they're not constantly bothering each other for information. They can each focus on their own tasks.
Exactly. And here's another cool thing about this autonomy. It gives you more flexibility with your tech stack.
Oh, what do you mean?
So with this command-side replica, the order service and the restaurant service, they could actually be using totally different types of databases if they wanted to, and it wouldn't matter.
Wow. So no more forcing everyone to use the same tools just because they have to share data.
You got it. It's all about picking the best tool for the job.
That's what I always say. The right tool for the job. I love it. So we've talked about the speed improvements, the flexibility,
Hmm.
any other cool benefits of this whole command-side replica thing?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this one's a biggie. It kind of ties back to that whole autonomy thing we were talking about. Resilience.
Resilience, okay. Like it can handle a little bit of chaos.
Exactly. So let's say, for some reason, the restaurant service goes down.
Uh-oh. Someone tripped over the milkshake machine cord again.
Let's go with that. Point is, the restaurant service is offline. But with this pattern, the order service, it can just keep on chugging along.
No way. Really?
Yeah, because it's got its own copy of the menu data, right? It's not completely dependent on the restaurant service being up and running every second of every day.
Wow, that's huge. So even if one part of the system takes a little nap, the whole thing doesn't crash and burn.
Exactly. It can handle those little hiccups without missing a beat.
I am seriously loving this pattern more and more.
Yeah.
Although I guess it can't be totally set it and forget it, right?
Yeah,
There's still
yeah.
got to be some kind of link between the services, right?
Right. There is a little bit of, let's say, coordination that needs to happen. For example, the order service, it needs to know how the restaurant service organizes its data, right? Like the structure of it.
So it can't be totally clueless. It needs a little bit of insider information.
Right. It's like it needs to know which drawer you keep the spoons in, even if it has its own set of spoons.
Okay, that makes sense. So there's a little bit of dependence there,
Yeah,
but not too much, hopefully.
exactly. That's the balancing act. Enough coupling to keep things running smoothly, but not so much that they become like joined at the hip.
Got it.
Yeah.
So finding that sweet spot is key, making sure the microservices can work together without tripping over each other.
Exactly. And speaking of working together, this whole conversation has got me thinking about some other patterns that kind of relate to this. Have you ever heard of CQRS?
CQRS. Is that a new type of coffee drink?
Huh. I wish. No, it stands for Command Query Responsibility Segregation.
Catchy,
Huh.
but also kind of a mouthful. What's it all about?
Well, think about it like this. Instead of having one big menu for everything, you split it up, right? One menu for ordering those are the commands, and then a separate menu for just browsing. Those are the queries.
Ah, okay. So like separate lines at the restaurant, one for people who know what they want and one for people just deciding.
Perfect analogy. It's all about streamlining things, making it easier for different parts of the system to access and manage data.
Ah, so it's kind of similar to the command-side replica pattern,
Er.
right? Different approaches, but with the same goal in mind. Like, I don't know, should we order pizza or tacos? Both delicious. Just depends on what we're in the mood for.
Huh. I like the way you think. And while we're on a roll with related concepts, there's another one that came up in our research, sagas.
Sagas. Okay, now I'm thinking like epic tales of Vikings and quests.
Well, in the microservices world, they can be pretty epic too. Sagas are basically a way of handling these more complicated situations where you need a bunch of different steps to happen.
Steps like ordering, paying, getting your food.
Exactly. It's like, imagine you're not just ordering a pizza, you're ordering a pizza, then someone's got to make the pizza, then someone's got to deliver the pizza, right? And all those steps need to happen in the right order. So sagas help orchestrate all of that.
So they're like the stage manager for a multi-step process, making sure everything flows smoothly and nobody forgets their lines.
Exactly. They bring order to the potential chaos of distributed systems.
Love it. Okay, so big picture time. We've covered a ton of ground here. We talked about the challenges of data sharing and microservices, dove deep into this command-side replica pattern, and even explored some related concepts like CQRS and Saga. It's like a whole microservice party in here. But if our listeners could only take away one thing from this whole conversation, what would you want it to be?
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway is this. There's no magic bullet. No single solution that's perfect for every situation. This command-side replica pattern, it's a powerful tool, sure. But like any tool, you got to know when to use it, what it's good for, and what those potential drawbacks are.
It's all about making informed decisions, right?
Yeah.
Weighing the pros and cons, just like with any architectural choice.
Absolutely. Don't just blindly follow patterns because they sound cool. And trust me, this one does sound cool. Always think critically about what your system needs.
Couldn't have said it better myself. A huge thank you to you for walking us through all of this. It's been incredibly insightful, even for someone like me who thought they knew a thing or two about microservices. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on another deep dive. If you want to explore these ideas even further, and trust me, there's a lot more to discover, definitely check out the work of Chris Richardson. His insights were invaluable in putting this episode together. Until next time, keep that curiosity burning and happy coding. And you can now follow Code Impact Podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other podcast networks.